For a few hours, the world saw something it wasn't meant to. A glitch in the matrix, a tear in the digital veil. Google Earth, that ubiquitous eye in the sky, revealed a secret so profound, so utterly terrifying, that it was scrubbed from existence almost as quickly as it appeared. But for those who saw it, for those who captured the screenshots, the image was burned into their minds. It wasn't a blurry UFO or a hidden base. It was something far worse. Something that defied logic, physics, and sanity itself. And it wasn't a mistake. It started innocently enough. A user, deep in the rabbit hole of online forums, obsessed with the forbidden zones of Nevada, stumbled upon a set of coordinates. Not the usual, well-known Area 51 coordinates, but a lesser-known, more remote sector. Curiosity, as it always does, led them to type it into Google Earth. What appeared on their screen wasn't a military installation or even barren desert. It was a distortion, a ripple in reality, a tear in the fabric of the digital world, a perfect, inky blackness, a void that seemed to absorb the light around it. It was a shadow, yes, but unlike any shadow cast by the sun. It was a shadow that seemed to exist independently, a stain on the very canvas of existence. It was wrong. Fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. But that wasn't the strangest part. This wasn't a simple pixel error. This wasn't a satellite malfunction. The anomaly pulsed, a subtle, almost imperceptible throb within the blackness. It was as if the void itself was breathing, a silent, cosmic lung expanding and contracting. The user, let's call him Observer Alpha, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night. He knew instinctively that he was looking at something that shouldn't be, something that couldn't be, and the more he looked, the more it seemed to look back. Other users quickly joined in. Screenshots flooded forums, each one confirming the impossible. The blackness wasn't static. It shifted, ever so slightly, within the satellite image. A subtle, almost imperceptible movement that defied the fixed nature of a map. It was like an unblinking eye watching, waiting. The collective consciousness of the internet had stumbled upon a secret, and the secret was now aware of them. But the true horror was in its defiance of physics. This isn't a shadow cast by a building or a mountain. This was a void. It didn't respect light or perspective. It was a perfect, absolute absence, a patch of pure nothingness that seemed to suck the very essence out of the landscape around it. It was abstract, yes, but terrifyingly real. It was a hole in reality, a tear in the fabric of space-time, manifesting as a digital anomaly. It was uncomfortable to look at, not because of what it showed, but because of what it didn't show. It was a blank slate, a canvas of non-existence, and it made the mind reel. And then the impossible happened. One user, meticulously comparing screenshots taken minutes apart, noticed it. The distortion had moved. Not the satellite, not the Earth, but the shadow itself. It had subtly, almost imperceptibly, shifted its position within the coordinates. A few meters to the west, then a few more to the north. It was a living entity, a sentient void, capable of locomotion. It was a violation of every known law of physics, a digital ghost haunting the most secure location on Earth. And that's when the theories began to unravel. Experts, both legitimate and fringe, weighed in. Some claimed it was a rendering error, a software bug. But the consistency across multiple satellite passes, the subtle, intelligent movement, defied simple explanation. Others whispered of a cloaking device, a technology so advanced it could bend light and space. But this wasn't bending. This was erasing. It was a deliberate act of non-existence, a digital echo of something that shouldn't be. But the real question wasn't what it was, but what it wanted. The anomaly was eventually scrubbed. The coordinates now showed only barren desert. But the screenshots remained. The memory lingered. And for those who had stared into that digital abyss, something had changed. A subtle shift in their perception, a persistent unease. It was as if the void had left an imprint, a digital scar on their minds. It was no longer just an image on a screen. It was a presence. That's when things started to get personal. Then came the dreams. Not nightmares, not exactly, but a recurring motif. A vast, empty space, a sense of being watched from within the darkness. People who had seen the Google Earth anomaly began reporting strikingly similar nocturnal experiences. A pervasive feeling of observation, a silent, unblinking gaze from beyond the veil. It wasn't a shared dream, it was a shared memory, a collective subconscious imprint left by the void. It was as if the act of observing the distortion had activated something within them, a dormant receptor for an alien signal. Maybe Google wasn't hiding something. Maybe it was protecting us. The paranoia grew, not the wild, raving kind, but a subtle, insidious unease. People reported feeling a presence in empty rooms, a cold spot in their peripheral vision. They started seeing patterns in mundane objects, hearing whispers in the quiet moments. It was as if their minds, once exposed to the void, were now attuned to its frequency, picking up echoes of its existence. The line between reality and perception began to blur, and the more they tried to forget, the clearer it became. It wasn't just about seeing the image. It was about the image seeing them. The act of observation was a two-way street. By focusing their attention on the anomaly, they had, in turn, drawn its attention. It was a subtle psychological warfare where the weapon was pure information and the battlefield was the human mind. The void wasn't just a geographical anomaly. It was a sentient entity capable of interacting with consciousness. But how could a digital image be alive? The dreams intensified. The feeling of being watched became almost unbearable. It was a slow, creeping invasion, not of the body, but of the mind. The void wasn't just a place. It was a state of being, a consciousness that sought to expand, to consume. And those who had glimpsed it on Google Earth were now its unwitting hosts, their minds slowly being reshaped, reconfigured, to accommodate its alien logic. And that's when the true purpose of the blur became terrifyingly clear. What if the blur, that familiar pixelated censorship over Area 51, wasn't just a way to hide military secrets? What if it was a containment field, a digital barrier designed not to obscure, but to protect us from something far more dangerous than any weapon? The distortion, that inky blackness, wasn't a mistake. It was a breach, a momentary failure of a system designed to keep something in. And when it was observed, when human consciousness focused on it, the distortion reacted. It wasn't just a passive image. It was an active entity, a sentient anomaly that fed on attention, on perception. By looking at it, we weren't just seeing a secret, we were activating it. We were giving it power, giving it a pathway into our minds. The blur wasn't hiding a base. It was hiding a predator. And now you're part of the equation. Every time you discuss it, every time you think about it, every time you search for those old screenshots, you're reinforcing the connection. You're feeding the anomaly. The blur is a shield, a necessary illusion. And the moment it failed, the moment the void was glimpsed, a link was forged. A link between it and us. The Google Earth incident wasn't just a fleeting moment of exposure. It was an initiation. And the initiation is irreversible. So you've heard the story. You've seen the screenshots, or at least you've seen the idea of them. You've contemplated the void, the shifting shadow, the dreams, the paranoia. You've allowed these concepts to take root in your mind. The file, the distortion, the anomaly. It doesn't need to be physically present to exert its influence. It only needs to be remembered. And the more you remember, the more it reshapes your understanding, subtly altering your reality, one thought at a time. The seeds of doubt, of altered perception, have been sown. They are blooming in your subconscious. And the question isn't if you'll ever forget it. And what if you didn't find the image, but it found you?